So that's my sort of overarching theme, is that the new international economic order in Mayes County is going to be industrial park governance. And I have a couple of slides that say, what does this look like? It's globalized, privatized, and data-driven. In the where I say it's globalized, I want you also, if you would, to think of it's regionalized, because when I look at your plans and what your, your stakeholders here are talking about, they're talking about regional collaborations. And just to be clear, regionalism as a term that's used by our New World Order social engineers, it is a step toward global governance. Thank you so much for having me. Let me get situated. My clicker is out of battery, so I'm gonna, this is my husband, Tony, who helps me with these things. While he does that, I meant to make enough copies for everyone. I don't have those, but I do have these papers that I'll leave with Phyllis tonight, or you could take a picture for your, on your phone. One is the top 10 buzzwords. We'll talk about those tonight, but this is just the language of the New World Order decoded, and these are my top 10. I also have probably 200 more that I haven't written definitions for. But as we'll talk about tonight, it's very important to learn the language. Once you know what to look for, you can spot any New World Order plan. And then this just has two of the slides that I'll use tonight about the new international economic order and its goals. One is economic growth, social inclusion. The other is environmental or resource management. And when you see these formulae on any comprehensive plan, any piece of legislation, any corporate policy document, you know that you are dealing with a New World Order program. So I hope that these are helpful, and I'm sorry I didn't bring more copies. There's also an extra, what is the 30 by 30 land grab. So maybe if I can give those to you. Oh, there's one extra one. We could pass them around. And I also, just before I get started, I told Phyllis what I will do after this talk, because I'm going to throw a lot of information at you. And Brian Mayberry is kind enough to make a video recording of this, and so we'll get the recording of tonight's talk up on YouTube, and there will be links to a Google Drive folder that has the primary source documents that I've used. Here I have like the Guide to Growth for Pryor, and several documents from the World Bank and other sources. So you can access the slides, the video, and those supporting documents through that link, and it might be within the week that we get that ready. One other just housekeeping detail. You'll find it's too many pages probably to take a picture of, but this is I wrote this, it's a draft, but it's in fine shape to share, I believe. Globalization and Comprehensive Planning, How to Identify the UN Agenda in Local, Regional, State, and National Master Plans. I've had several people from different cities in Oklahoma use this guide just to show to their city councilors or legislators, and it walks you through how to back up your claim that their comprehensive plan is based on the United Nations framework for territorial development. So it walks you how to do that, and it also gives you examples, a step-by-step guide of what steps you can take to make sure that you know that you're dealing with a New World Order plan, and it's easier than you think. So this has been useful for others, and I hope it might be useful for you as well. Okay, so again, thank you for having me. It's been 2 years almost to the day that I've given a talk like this. For a while, I was going to many different groups and cities in Oklahoma, and as was mentioned in the introduction, I've done talks for different cities in the United States and also in different countries. So, for example, I gave a presentation to Newcastle Australians via Zoom about the topics that we're going to talk about today. And I can do that because we're dealing with something that sounds very complicated, but actually it's not. It's a template that every town, every city, every rural area across the globe is using. And before I understood how these plans, comprehensive plans, and just different policy actions worked, then I thought there is no way that everybody could be doing the same thing. Like, that's not how human beings work, right? You know, Tulsans do things in a different way than the people in Oklahoma City do, or in Mays County. It's natural that we have genuine diversity of thought. We have different experiences and things. So it was shocking to me to see that every town, every city, every county, whether you're a liberal state or a conservative state, they're all doing the same thing. And I thought, how could, that doesn't work that way. It actually does, and it's because we have very powerful groups who for a long time have been plotting what I'm going to just call the New World Order. So there have been efforts to come up with a plan to control everyone. It's a devilish plan, and I think it has dark spiritual roots, and we have to acknowledge those, because the scope of it, there's just no way that you can explain it through materialist terms or without, I think, referencing Satan and his minions, you know, because this is, it's a coordinated effort to control people and to cause misery while you convince people that they're enjoying something that no one before has ever enjoyed, okay? So every town is doing this, every place is doing it. They have a strategy that these elite groups use. Well, let me see now how did I get, where's the presentation? So if you want to know how they do it, we've got many layers of, say, professional groups that all will bring about the same language, the same concerns, the same policies. You have professional groups, you have academic groups, you have public or community service groups. They all start talking about the same things. That's because at the very highest echelons of global society, we have elite think tanks that have developed the vocabulary that I mentioned and the policies to promote this standardized vision of the New World Order that they intend to roll out in Australia just the same as Oklahoma. So all of these plans and that I'm going to talk about tonight, they're the same in every city. However, when I go to do a talk at Mays County versus another place, Osage County, Washington County, then I like to look just a little bit at the particular circumstances that you're dealing with. And although it's the same pattern, it's the same template, there are nuances that I think are are good to explore so that you as concerned citizens can take the specific issues to your city council, your county government, your state legislators, and say, these are the problems that we need to address right now. So as we look at some of the things that are going on today, I'm going to really focus on how this New World Order program, the New International Economic Order, looks like governance, not government, but governance by an industrial park. And so we are going to see the rise of the company town. And you guys have it bad. I knew about what was going on at the MAPE, and we've heard about the data centers, and we know about Google is the bad guy, right? But oh my goodness, this entity, this concentration of power is right here. So I think we need to look at how that very serious situation of the MAPE, an industrial park that is probably one of the most powerful entities in the state, let alone the county, how it's going to slowly push out representative government in favor of corporate industrial park style governance. So that's my sort of overarching theme, is that the new international economic order in Mayes County is going to be industrial park governance. And I have a couple of slides that say, what does this look like? It's globalized, privatized, and data-driven. In the where I say it's globalized, I want you also, if you would, to think of it's regionalized, because when I look at your plans and what your stakeholders here are talking about, they're talking about regional collaborations. And just to be clear, regionalism as a term that's used by our New World Order social engineers, it is a step toward global governance. Okay, regionalism is not like what you might think of local control, and we're keeping things sort of local-ish, maybe you think of the county level. No, regionalism is an incremental step toward the dissolution of all political boundaries. So the ultimate goal of the New World Order is to get rid of national governments and to have basically privatized government in which citizens can contract with whichever business or nonprofit entity they think will give them the best deal. And those entities that are going to offer citizenship packages will choose you or not based on your social credit score. Okay, so that's like the big goal, the end picture. But before we can get to that point, there are steps that must be taken, and regionalism is one of those. And so we'll look at how the New World Order here, or the New International Economic Order, is being promoted by the MAPE and Google. I'm just going to use those two interchangeably. I'm fudging a little there, but it's Google is an easy villain. But we'll look at how that private governance model promoting regionalism is slowly trying to chip away at your rights so that there's no such thing as actual government. It's just a corporate policy. And then, of course, the economy based on that will be data-driven. It's not going to be based on making actual things that people use or need, but it's going to be about selling ideas of things and future promises of things that may never materialize but can provide a fine justification for getting you into debt, constructing a new road that you're probably never going to need. So globalized, data-driven, privatized you won't have representatives who are answerable to the public. So let's just look, how is this going on? I took there is a guide to growth that was funded through, by the generous assistance of the MAPE. And what it is it's a sort of plan for the comprehensive plans in your area. And so I started looking at that, and we'll see, I have some snapshots of it later on in my slides. But I started looking at it, and number one, I think it was whoever paid for that made a lousy choice, because it's very sloppily written and it looks like it was just AI generated. I mean, it's lousy. But the Guide for Growth is sponsored by the MAPE in collaboration with several towns, 6 towns, I believe. And then, I've got them right there. Here, the Pryor Economic Development Authority. Now I'll look at what they say for Pryor, because in that same plan, the Guides for Growth, there is an argument that Pryor is the best situated to lead this new regional unit, the Four Corners unit that is, I suppose, supposed to replace county government and certainly individual municipalities. Okay, so the Guides for Growth suggests that Pryor should be the lead, because they are the most advanced in terms of their own comprehensive plan and reforms that include things like smart cities, smart growth, and other aspects of the New World Order. So I looked at that, and then I found, we've got this initiative called Inspire Mays County. Now, every single city in Oklahoma, in the country, has some sort of initiative like this. I was just looking at Chickashay's. I did a presentation in Chickashay. They have Onward Chickashay. McAllister has Moving McAllister Forward. I mean, I hate this garbage. It's so cheesy, right? So you have our state logo, which is, the UN color wheel. It says, imagine that. And they're reimagining everything. Do you want it reimagined? I don't think so. They want to reimagine it for you. And it's imaginary because it's all fake. I won't get into that, but it's a fake economy based on fake values, and it's all just a big Ponzi scheme. But we'll set that aside for now. We'll put those imaginations, and we'll concentrate on the Inspire Mays County, because it looks like you all need a lot of inspiration. I'm sorry. So what are the values that Inspire Mays County wants to promote? Because you all need a new set of values. Of course, I'm being sarcastic here because it's so lousy. Our values, says Inspire Mays County, which is guided by the Pryor Economic Development Authority, which is supposed to lead the entire region. Our values help guide economic development efforts toward what? Sustainable, inclusive, and resilient growth that benefits both individuals and communities. Buzzword, buzzword, buzzword. They're on my top 10 list. So it's not even a question. And then it goes on, if you look on the website, it says, what are our values? Sustainability. Everyone should know that sustainability is linked with the what? Sustainable Development Agenda, which comes from where? The United Nations. And really the United Nations, I believe, is a front for global financial groups like the WEF, like the giant insurance conglomerates and holding companies and BlackRocks and all of that. But the United Nations, because it seems to represent people, looks a little friendlier, and people aren't quite so suspicious of it as they are of Klaus Schwab and his ilk, right? But there's not even any covering it up. You have sustainability. emphasizing environmentally friendly and socially responsible practices that support long-term economic growth without compromising future generations' ability to meet their own needs. That is straight up the definition of sustainable development from the UN documents. And I can show those to you. They'll be in the Google Drive folder. It is almost word for word. Future generations' ability to meet their, long-term needs, and you have long-term economic growth contrasted with social policy and environmental policy. This is what I call the balancing formula. So anytime you see the balancing formula in your plans, or in legislation, you're dealing with a New World Order plan. You're balancing either economic growth and environmental protection, or sometimes it's economic growth versus like local character. When I did this in Rogers County, their county plan was a little bit better than yours. Because the authors, at least, knew not to use the word sustainable development. And so instead of saying we're going to balance economic growth against environmental protection for sustainability, because they knew that would tick off all the conservatives, right? Then they said we're going to balance it against local character and the need to protect sense of place. So once you look at a few of these documents, you start to see there's always the balancing between economic growth on the one hand and then some other policy, whether it's social responsibility, local character, or environmental protection on the other. It's always there. So Inspire Mays County, which is partner with all of these groups, Mid-America and Google, they say it right here. Sustainability, innovation, that's going to be your 4IR, Fourth Industrial Revolution, high technologies, that are going to displace many American workers and jobs, and they are the means of a giant surveillance grid. That's what innovation means when you read it in any of these documents. That's their value. Who's doing the innovation? Well, as I look at Mays County, and I'm not an expert, but just the general picture that anyone who Googles Mays County can get is that there is a rural contingent, and then there is the MAPE. Those are the two basic forces. I mean, you've got your other small towns and some local businesses. You guys are, if you own a local business or anything, you're sort of stuck in the middle. And you're a threat, actually, to Google, and they're going to try to get rid of that threat because this type of governance, industrial park governance, is based on managing risk. If you think of what any big corporation does, how decisions are made, it's based on managing risk. And who's the risk? Human beings are the risk, because we're unpredictable. We do messy, irrational things. We like freedom to make dumb choices sometimes. That's a danger to people who want to engineer the world into a machine, into a reflexive feedback loop. When you hear the term circular economy, what it is it's a sustainable, it sustains itself type of economy that there's never anything new that comes in. There's never any departure from the pattern of its motion. It's all the same thing. It's total supply chain management. That's another way that we can see a parallel with this industrial park management. The type of economy that they're going for is one that is a closed loop. And you don't want to introduce any risk into a closed loop, or else it goes haywire. Just like giant corporations in the MAPE and these areas like this are trying to, my goodness, I've not made it past the second slide. They're trying to diminish risk. That's one reason why they cluster in industries together and try to make sure that all of their processes are managed and monitored. So I could go through lots of these, but I won't. Sometimes I talk too much on each slide. So what else is happening here? So we got the MAPE, and I did not realize it was the 8th largest industrial park globally. That is huge. And the 3rd largest in the United States, home to 5 Fortune 500 companies, and those are the real potentates right now. It's the corporations. You know, they have so much power. The Fortune 500 companies, including the 2nd largest Google data center globally. Down at the bottom, I'll read it for you. Okay, it's one of the few industrial parks owned and operated by a self-sustaining public trust. In your efforts to tackle the problems associated with industrial park governance, I think this is going to be key, because it's difficult to take lands that are in public trust out of that trust. I mean, that's the purpose of a trust, right, is to lock up the land. So I think a lot depends on what they do at the state capitol governing this area. But I bet you're going to see efforts to privatize it, or the incremental intermediate step is to form a partnership for governance. And slowly you're going to have a public partner and a private partner. And the public partner, that's the government, us taxpayers, is going to run out of money because of different things that are going to happen. You know, increase in poverty as automation displaces jobs, as, you know, who knows what policies this country is going to get itself into. But money is a big problem, and it's not for Google. So if you have a public partner and a private partner, generally speaking, the private partner is always going to have more clout because they've got more money. Now, they need the public partner. Why? Because it gives legitimacy to their actions. So, by and large, we still believe in the rule of law, in constitutional representative government, most of us, and even though it is often undermined by events of the day, we still think it matters and is good, and we're not going to follow other authorities besides the one that is by the people and for the people, right? So your private partners, and these are the real titans behind the transformation to the New World Order, they've got to rope in publicly elected officials, and they have to absorb or incorporate the public authority into their, into their network of influence. So the private partner is very important because it has the money and specialized expertise and the connections. And then the public side of the authority is really what helps the people, or helps get the people's, approval, or at least it affects perceptions of legitimacy. It's a little bit complicated because we're losing trust in government. That, I think, is largely a media creation because our social engineers want to see the dissolution of government. So you have to convince people that government is ineffective. It doesn't respond quickly to anything. It's not efficient. Never mind, it was designed not to be efficient, right? But you tell people that, and then they lose trust in government, and then they say, oh, the private sector solves all the problems. Well, if you're not trusting government and you're not funding government, you're putting yourself in a bad situation, because if you have a problem and you call your state legislator, he's probably going to call you back. But if you have a problem with Amazon or Google, are they going to call you back? No, they don't care about you at all. So look at how this, I'm sorry, I got off on a tangent there, but it's still all related. Look at the fact that this industrial park, your press releases are saying it's interesting because, or it's differentiated because it's run by a self-sustaining public trust. Now that has the added effect of making utility costs 20 to 70% lower than other locations. Now utilities, right? Didn't we just see a flyer about utilities and the bills all going up? And now we're reading that the MAPE, they have 20 to 70% lower bills than most other parks, right? I mean, you'd have to have a forensic accountant look at this stuff, and that's way beyond my level of expertise. But I think that there's probably a lot of manipulation going on to give corporations incentives to make Oklahomans pay for the power that is going to be used by Google to cool its facilities so that it can advance the machine learning that's going to put us all out of work, right? But at least, I don't know. I just don't even know where to go from there. But if we look at Google's profile, if we look at what Google says about itself on the website, look what it's going to do. It says, Google recognizes that its data center operations and value chain can be engines of economic, environmental, and social progress. Now, you all have heard of ESG investments, right? Environmental, social governance, goals, objectives, targets. It's social credit scoring. It's straight from the UN Sustainable Development Agenda. And here we have Google saying that is a priority for them. They're going to harness AI to drive innovation and accelerate climate action, and it seeks to engage directly with community members, that's you all, to advance and measure impact. What that means when it says advance impact, that means it wants to change your values to reflect those of the Sustainable Development Goals, ESG goals. Its climate goals, its environmental and economic goals, and to measure impact. It's going to measure how effectively it creates change in this community. Toward what? Toward the SDGs. And it's going to report that as part of its business profile so that, so that the investors are happy, right? So if we look at just those values, Inspire Mays County, they're partnered with Google and the MAPE. If we look at how powerful Google is, I mean, it's almost comical. We're talking about Google here in Mays County, Oklahoma. And what's its agenda? It is the Sustainable Development Agenda, and it is to manipulate values. Okay, so it's powered by vision. This is the development. If we just look at like development, what's going on, MAPE is saying we've got Project Horizon. What is it? It's a live, work, play community. Have you all heard that phrase? Live, work, play? It's all over. It basically means a 15-minute city. Who's heard of a 15-minute city? And I figured you guys were in the know. 15-minute city is a smart city, just viewed from a different lens. So smart cities, we'll get to this, they are automated. They use information communications technologies to generate and share data about everything that happens. And that data is very valuable. Why? Because we're moving into an economic environment in which predicting and controlling risk is the main, that's the main item. It's the commodity. I'm sorry, it's the commodity that everyone wants. Your insurance companies want it so that they can make the right bet on your health. Okay, so a smart city gathers all of that data. It's the same thing as a 15-minute city, but the 15-minute city is just viewed through the lens of geospatial restrictions or access management. So it also uses smart technology to keep people in the zone, but it highlights the urban planning component that is there. So Project Horizon is building a live, work, play community, and that is, I actually Googled it, and the AI suggestion, which I don't usually take, just on principle, it said that a live, work, play community is a 5-minute city. Not a 15, it said it's linked to a 5-minute city. So you have everything you need within 5 minutes of walking, not driving. So the MAPE is building that. What does that mean more precisely? It means, under Project Horizon, okay, the future of Mid-America is a fully integrated community where industry, workforce, education, housing, and lifestyle meet. That is building a company town, a gulag, in which the industrial park can quality control all of the human beings that work there, all of their ideas, all of their resource consumption, and they put it into this feedback loop, the circular economy, and they say somehow that this is powering growth. And doesn't that sound nice? It's a big fat fib, that's why I say it's all fake. Let's just call it how it is. So what are they? They're building these, and they're also funding trails, right? Biking trails, nature trails, recreation trails. You're gonna be able to bike to the MAPE. Let me tell you, in Tulsa, we've got all kinds of biking initiatives. NCOG is our regional planning association, organization, and there are plans for everyone to bike all over Oklahoma. How many people do you see biking to work each day in Tulsa? I don't see anybody biking to work, and even people who like to bike, they don't want to bike to work. You're gonna get hot and sweaty and the dust and who knows what else. You're probably gonna get hit by a car. But then that would just add to the cause of needing pedestrian safety zones, like crosswalks, access points, traffic calming measures, and those are all part of smart growth policies to keep you contained, right? So the Trails Network and let's see, business, and they're doing regional planning. What's our time? Oh goodness. Okay, I always do this. So what is it? The NIEO is, it is the new international economic order. You can look it up, or I'll put some other slides in the file if you are interested. It is economic growth, environmental protection, social cohesion for sustainable development, and we see it roll out through comprehensive plans, growth guides, and so on. You've got that slide. And we've talked about the fourth industrial revolution. Okay, so how the New World Order is sold to people, of course not under that name, is that it creates value. So if you look in the city plan that all of your cities are formulating, led by Pryor, led by the MAPE, they're going to talk about quality of life. That is a buzzword. You're going to see it everywhere. You guys are going to notice these. It's in every document. So what is quality of life? The Guide to Growth defines it. It says it just is based on your perception. But really, they're tied to the services and amenities and goals of the UN. So clean water, healthy, active transportation, and so on. So that's the kind of environment we're promoting here. It's privatized. So you have public-private partnerships that implement growth management plans. When we talk about economic development, you need to think of this like it's a developed economy. And it's not developed by the regular folks. It is developed by the financiers, and it trickles down, and it gets to the leadership at the MAPE, and the MAPE and Google tell you guys what to do. Okay, and it's data driven. That means it's going to collect tons and tons of data, monitoring all the people who live in the live, work, play community. I'm sure they have new housing, affordable housing. They determine if it's affordable based on what they pay you, and they know what they pay you. And then they offset it by what they pay for your insurance or your company phone or your credits at the company grocery store. But as soon as they do all of that, what's the value to them in controlling you? Well, they get to know everything about how human beings act. And all of that data capture about human behavior feeds the beast of the AI even more. And so it really is, it's a power-hungry enterprise. Okay, so smart cities, what are they? Infrastructure based around tech, environmental initiatives, highly functional public transportation, confident city plans, and so on. Let me go on because I'm sure we're out of time. You can see this is a publication from the UN and the People's Republic of China, leveraging a new generation of industrial parks and zones for inclusive and sustainable development. So this is one publication, 2018, that I found. Where you find one, there are dozens more. So there has been much thought put into how industrial parks, free trade zones, technology hubs, all sorts of corridors and different anchor institutions can roll out the provisions of the New World Order. Okay, so what I'm suggesting is that the MAPE is doing it here. There's precedent, there's evidence to back up that that's how they're proceeding. I think, when is your meeting ending? Because I can probably just wrap this up right now. You don't? I'm just worried that I've exhausted your attention. Is it okay? I mean, I could keep going, but then I talk too much and wear people out.
We'll just get up and leave.
Okay, and I won't be offended. I've got a thick skin. So, okay, so if that's all right, then I'll just go on a little bit more just till we can get to your plan, and then I'll take questions. Okay, so most of you know what a smart city is, even before I did this, this little talk, because it's been in the news, it's salient. But what we probably don't, or what we're probably less familiar with, is the concept of smart growth. So when you see economic growth, what is it? That it really means smart growth. They use these words like this all the time. Smart growth is, this is from Smart Growth America. You can, if you go to their website, you can search all sorts of case studies, and there are many places in Oklahoma that have done pilot programs with Smart Growth America. It's a global group that has its own United States division. Pahuska, Oklahoma did a pilot study with Smart Growth America, so they're entrenched here, and it's a huge global firm, Policy Institute. They say it's a country, what is smart growth? The aim of it is a country where no matter where you live or who you are, you can enjoy living in a place that is healthy, prosperous, and resilient. Like those are buzzwords. Healthy, prosperous, resilient. Resilient means that that risks are mitigated and you can bounce back from disruptions. Through what? Through digital backups of everything, through automated systems that make up for human error. It sounds nice until you start adding in all the technology that it encompasses. Prosperous, what is prosperous? It's not just you've got lots of money in the bank that can afford you a comfortable lifestyle. Prosperous really means that you have access to, like the potential of accessing community services, such as healthcare, parks and recreation, mobility, those sorts of things. It's not that you actually own it, it's that it's available in your community to you. And healthy, you know, who knows what that means. But they go on to say, neighborhoods shape our lives. Smart growth means reinvesting in America's downtown, creating families, building streets, protecting our open green spaces for generations to come. We saw that phrase earlier. Above all, it's about helping every town and city, everywhere, become a more economically prosperous, socially equitable, and environmentally sustainable place to live, helping everyone flourish. That's your ESG. Now there are these specific and more familiar prongs of smart growth, and these are what you will find in every single comprehensive plan that you ever look at. And once you've read one, you've really read them all. You just have to know how to decode the language or recognize a pattern. Mixed land uses, compact design, smart city, range of affordable housing, your workforce housing. There are districts that have single family homes, you know, different co-living, co-working developments, walkable neighborhoods, distinctive, attractive communities with a strong sense of place. A lot of this New World Order stuff, I told you it's all fake. It's about selling fakeness, artificiality. It all has to do with branding. So they create a sense of place. They use that term through branding, through, you know, we've got in Tulsa, we've got this hideous Tulsa flag. It looks like a bullseye dripping something. I know what they say it's supposed to be, but I don't think that that's what it looks like. Every little city is doing this branding effort, and different districts and corridors and zones within the cities are supposed to, it's one of the recommendations, adopt branding, gateway signage that says you're entering this, you're entering that. What is it doing? It's trying to get you to sort of love your unique area and have loyalty to your, you know, your mixed-use development versus your country or anything else. And there's so much emphasis on branding. You have to sell this way. So when you see, I mean, some of this can be kind of cool, you know, the wayfinding. If you go visit a new place, it is kind of neat to see if you're a tourist. And some of the revitalization efforts are kind of cool. You just have to know it's all top-down contrived and take it with a grain of salt, right? But that's part of smart growth, and it pads the pockets of a lot of consultants. We pay for many consultants with this stuff. Okay, preserve open space and critical environmental areas, direct development toward existing communities. So you don't want to expand city boundaries. You might annex, I think Pryor's talking about annexing to the north and east, I believe. But really, you want development to be compact, and your city planners, managers, stakeholders, they're going to decide where improvements should occur, not the people. So they're going to decide this place could use a water utility upgrade. Why? Because we think that in the future it will be important to have it there. And we want to promote economic growth there because we can put in a light rail to that place and connect it to the MAPE. So it's called transit-oriented development. The U.S. Department of Transportation promotes that policy. It is a smart city policy. Tulsa has a 2016 smart city plan with the U.S. Department of Transportation. It's all about transit-oriented development. So that's another word, means smart city, 15-minute city, smart growth. Make development decisions predictable, fair, cost-effective, and diversify transportation. That means get rid of cars. Make it harder for cars to move around. Because why? You want to promote active transportation because that improves, like if a company has employees who walk or bike to work, then that company, your employer, can write off, or they don't have to record Scope 3 emissions, which is a measure of how much carbon is used in employees' commutes to work. So your employer, if it's a Fortune 500 company especially, but also smaller players, they're going to want to reduce the number of emissions they have to report. And that includes your commute to work. So they want you to bike to work. That's why they want you to live within 5 minutes, right? So when you see plans that say, let's diversify modes of transportation, what that means is let's get rid of private automobiles to the extent that we can, because cities as a whole are doing the same thing that the corporations are. So you have Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Kansas City, Dallas, they're all going to be competing to claim that they have made progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals. So those cities, as they vie for people to become citizens of those territories, it's going to be a digital territory, then they're going to promote themselves by saying, oh, well, we only have like 100 cars in our neck of the woods. Everybody walks and bikes here. Okay, so when you see that kind of policy, all of these are concrete components of smart growth. Smart cities have resulted from smart growth paradigms. Okay, so smart growth is sustainable development, and it is a top-down management of your economic system. Okay, it's probably hard to read, but you can download the Guides for Growth 2023. That's what MAPE so generously funded for you here. And it says, okay, in 2022, Mid-America Industrial Park initiated a robust community-based, I'm touching my mic, community-based process to assist the communities in the Four Corners region, located within Mays County, Oklahoma. And it says, in envisioning their future and understanding how growth may occur as a result to regional changes and developments within MAPE. It goes on to say, this guide is meant to capture the vision for the future. It's going to create recipes for how the vision can become a reality. This is actually what it says. And it establishes values and principles that help ensure that growth is of the type that will support the culture and landscape that define a particular place. What does that mumbo jumbo mean? It means we are going to get everyone thinking the same thing. We're going to align all stakeholders, and the stakeholders really are the developers, the owners, the managers, the bankers, the investors. They are not the residents. Because remember, the new NIEO, I don't know why I can't talk tonight. The NIEO wants to do away with national boundaries, with political boundaries of any sort. Why? So you can have this free flow of resources that can be measured, managed, monitored, monetized. So you got to get rid of things that are messy and create risk, like a representative government where you have elections, because those create, what? Changes in authority that can be disruptive. Okay, so that's why you want to get rid of it. You'd rather have corporate governance, because you have a corporate board that sets the rules and everybody has to follow the rules, or you get what? Fired. Okay, so our globalist bankers want this corporate governance, industrial park governance model. And so they are going to define the executive board, those are the stakeholders of this new world order, are going to define what values you should have and what principles you should have and what kinds of economic activity are allowable. And an activity that is to their liking will be given lots of, support, encouraged, probably a lot of, dare I say it, like under the table money, like kickbacks. If you go to any revitalized downtown in Oklahoma, it's going to have the same pattern of stores and it's going to have its own unique little offering. Like in Chickasha, they've got the leg lamp. I think they had to take that down. In Sapulpa, they had the Christmas shoot. In Pawhuska, they got the Pioneer Woman. What do you guys have here? Google. But people used to go and gawk at that Facebook sign, and take pictures of it. So who knows? I mean, they're probably going to find a way, and I'm really being serious, to market that. There's a mural on the Google building, right? And so all the public murals, and in this Guide for Growth, it's got this mural of Pryor with a girl like making the Y with her arms. And all the public art, I'm from Fort Smith, Arkansas. You should go look at our ugly public art. It's all the same. It's coordinated. You look at Tulsa's public art, any city's public art, it's all these weird, deranged pictures, and it's supposed to look edgy and cool, but there's nothing creative or beautiful or even genuinely edgy about it. It's all the same garbage over and over again. So if if you have a business proposal and it looks like it would fit into that program and you're going to be nice to the stakeholders who control everything, you'll get support, but nobody else will. Now, I could go through and show you how this thing just talks about, values and the common vision. I think, Michael, when we did the search on that document, you remember how many times that document said common vision? Wasn't it like 84 or something?
It set up like, I think, 112.
112 times, common, 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 common. Reading that document is almost like hypnotizing you, because every paragraph is really saying the same thing over and over. So we could go over that, but I know we've got people who are interested in land use and agriculture. So what is the pattern? We talk about cities and smart growth. How does this relate to the rural areas? Well, just like everything else, the New World Order tries to move incrementally. Because if you move too fast, then people get upset, and there's risk, and that is unpredictable, and it could mess up their plan. So they move slowly. It's Fabian socialism, if you want to get into some of the academic foundations of it. So the way that you incorporate the rural areas into these smart cities is, over time, creating partnerships with landowners. It has to do with putting restrictions on different lands and creating floodplains. And your Guide to Growth says, everybody in Pryor and Mays County is really interested in floodplains. Yeah, this is like one of the community concerns. I've got it on a slide. You guys are really concerned about preserving natural resources and floodplains, flood mitigation. I don't know anybody who is genuinely interested in floodplain mitigation. All it is a way to restrict, organic, environmental, economic activity. it cuts land off because insurers won't insure it, so you can't put a business there. You know, if you can't build a house there, you won't get home insurance. So floodplain designations, I have a long Facebook post about this, are just ways of rewilding and cutting land out from Americans' use. So that's one strategy that is going to be used to sort of slowly bring agricultural lands into the smart city. And it's a slow process of urbanizing all of the hinterlands. And you're going to do it, they're going to do it, you know, by offering incentives for people to place conservation easements on their land. And that looks good in the short term until you start to realize the long-term effects of that. You can't sell your land in certain ways. You can't use its own resources as you'd wish, and so on. Let me go. So there are conservation easements, floodplain designations, and let me see. Oh, there, okay. This is kind of at the end. This is a UN document that talks about resetting, and you guys probably know the phrase, the Great Reset from Klaus Schwab, resetting rural development for the 21st century. So it talks about you can accomplish the SDGs, multiple SDGs simultaneously through comprehensive public investments directed at basic infrastructure, human capital development. So if you look at what MAPE is doing with some of the universities and schools in the area, what are they doing? They're aligning pipelines to the workforce. So human capital development, you're going to start at early childhood. I think Head Start there's a Head Start on the MAPE campus, I believe, early Head Start. You start educating children early, but you know, even from the surrounding areas, and you train them to have the skills to get a job at one of the industries in the MAPE. And then they get sort of sucked in and loyal to the MAPE regime. Because MAPE's going to do what? They're going to provide your housing, your phone, your car, oh wait, no, your bike, and all of these different things that you can't get away from the MAPE. Because the MAPE probably doesn't pay very many taxes, and it's got this 20 to 70% lower utility bill. And so it's sort of draining monies from the general public, and it's sucking out the resources. So you're going to see people leaving those agricultural areas because they need work. Never mind the fact that the MAPE is interested in automating all of its processes because they'd like to get rid of all humans, because then I've got another slide that says robots don't get sick, robots don't go on strike, they don't have a bad day. So you also offer, it says, okay, here's my next slide. You overcome the rural-urban divide by placemaking, and that looks like utilizing the potential of in situ urbanization as a model of rural development. You have a sustainable rural-urban spatial combination toward environmental protection using new digital technologies and frontier technologies. So as our resetters or social engineers are coming up with these growth management plans for the city, then they're also sort of thinking of these plans for the agricultural areas. And that's when they say, let's go offer these conservation easements or packages for conservation banking credits. And they also promote ecotourism. And they make the argument that, well, we have to preserve the character of this place, so we want to make sure that it doesn't get any more developed than it already is, and you have to do these sorts of protections on it. And that also works like a floodplain, where it just takes these lands out of the ability of the public to use them for anything more than agricultural uses. And then slowly those agricultural uses are going to be deemed environmentally dangerous or a threat, and people are going to just start moving in toward the cities. So my hunch is that you have places like, now maybe since the MAPE is so big, maybe it might stick around for a while. But if you look, there are these huge industrial parks and developments that are about, what would you say, like when we drove to Dallas or through Oklahoma City, and then Ardmore has one too, right? I'm asking my husband this because I would notice him and I'd say, look, there's a gulag, there's a gulag. It's like, what, every 50 miles maybe? Somebody else probably knows this. But if you look, like, there are these huge industrial park developments that seem to be like 50 miles apart. And they kind of suck the people in. They're sparsely populating the surrounding areas, right? And they target young people. That's why they want to get your kids young and do STEM education, so that they learn to love robots, and then they will build them for them. But they suck people in, and so I think maybe if you've got all these parks and sort of nodes of economic activity every 50 miles now, and they suck people in, then in maybe 10, 15 years, the middle node of 3 might sort of go the way of the dodo, and it'll be sucked into the 2 nodes on either side. And then eventually we're going to see people sort of pushed into places like Tulsa, Oklahoma City. And the vision is for these giant megacities and huge areas of the US that's rewilded. And we could talk about how, we don't have time tonight, but when I did this talk in Osage County, we talked about how McGirt and the relations with the tribes works. And it's really fascinating, and the Fed is basically using the tribes because they have different rules for commerce. My blood sugar kind of drops, and so then I think more slowly. It's the commercial code, that's what it is. They have different commercial codes than the rest of us, and so it makes it easier for the Fed to sort of partner with the tribes and create free trade zones, digital economic zones, and introduce competing currencies to the dollar. Okay, and you have University of Tulsa law professors that are arguing for this. I've got the articles, the Fluent Token Protocol, they're doing it. They're trying to, or they're arguing for it, and that's actually, I think, in South Carolina. But, that's another aspect of this, and I'm not sure how much of Mays County is tribal land. Is it all of it? After McGirt. So, the partnership with the Cherokee tribe, they're really pushing the data centers on reservation land, I think, because it allows them to circumvent, laws that govern non-tribal areas. And they're just trying to take the Native Americans' rights just like they are ours, and they're going to try to pit non-tribal citizens against tribal citizens while they laugh all the way to the bank. So I think if you can get Oklahomans who are non-native to partner with the native tribes, together they could probably do some damage and bust this up. But I told you I was going to tell you a lot, and I'm open to taking questions if you've got any after this.
Where can we find you on social media? You've got to be on social media.
Well,
I know you don't like it.
Well, I used to be on it a lot. I've got a profile that's Julianne Romanello, but really I have sort of let it lapse the past 2 years I've been hanging out with my kids. So it's on there, and you can find, I've got lots of posts that you can still search, it's still up. And I've got a little website that's also very out of date, heartsoverhexagons.com.
Hearts Over Hexagons?
Yes, and that's the name of a YouTube channel where, all the talks that Brian has filmed, I upload them to that channel. Hearts, like the shape, Hearts Over Hexagons.
So is your YouTube channel then more current?
Is it? Yes. Well, it will be, but it's got lots of these videos.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, and so it's got links to the documents and other posts, and yeah,
That's exactly what I was looking for, thank you.
yeah.
It's very interesting.
Well, sure. I think I saw her hand first, or I'll take cards.
So did Oxford, England just put something more in place, if you're aware of that, or do you know of an example where they've moved ahead and where we find an action list?
Fighting a data center, in terms of what? Fighting the data.
Just overall in rural areas, how to fight.
I mean, I've got the sad but true news is that I have seen so much wonderful, lively action on the part of Oklahomans who care to fight this. And the victories are very small in proportion to the effort. Rogers County, man, they really busted their tails, and all they could kind of do was get a pause on some of this stuff.
We had like 150 or 200 people come out to see.
Oh, yeah, it was a ton.
And then they just use other words and keep going.
Yes. So as far as action plans go, I think that I've got like a Take Back Oklahoma sheet that I made like 5 years ago, and it talks about making connections with other cities and in Oklahoma with the goal of bolstering our state government, because corrupt as it is, it's still a check against the federal government, which is, I think it's totally under the control of the corporations. And you could get people, like, because the same thing is happening everywhere, if you could really strengthen Oklahoma government, and that's why I think you got to have the tribes and the, just non-native, what do you say? Beside, you have the natives and then the non-natives. If you could have them pair up here and in other states that have high levels of reservation land, you could bolster the power of the states, and then you could form blocks or regions or conglomerates that could defend the Constitution of the U.S. I mean, it sounds, like an impossible task. But I think really, what can you do? You can educate people about these words, because, and that's what I've just tried to do more than, we've held signs over bridges, and that's just fun. But if people can start to see the words and the patterns and how every single thing you read, every commercial, every logo on every corporation, every company plan, every church plan, everything, it all says the same garbage. And people should feel enough respect for themselves that they don't want to be pestered by that kitschy, awful nonsense. And so I kind of think you start from the ground up and you say, you teach kids, hey, look at this, this is propaganda. This is what it is. They want to teach your kids to love robots. You teach your kids what propaganda is, and we spread it. And I don't know if we can do much more than just try to educate as many people as possible to get involved, to understand the language, to get involved to whatever extent that they can, and then you leave it, we've got to sort of leave it in God's hands. I wish I had something more concrete, but I have seen so many efforts, you know, and it is hard to bust up these corporations. But so people have to decide that they don't want that product that their city council is selling, or that the big corporations. And you gotta, if you know what workforce development is, a lot of people are duped by that one, especially conservatives, because they think, oh, we want jobs, we want to work, we want to take care of our families. If they know what that means a plan of developing workers. Then maybe they will at least not support those policies that aim to enslave us. Well, I think that those comments are so important, and really the amount of control over first responders, military, police, I mean, it's even greater. And then there's also greater, let me say, flattery of those groups in order to create loyalties to the people that members of those groups, law enforcement and so on, would have the skills to oppose. So they're scared of former military, former police, and so there are lots of community programs that try to do outreach to them. To get the ones who could be sort of flattered into supporting the New World Order. The others, I think, are really injured, they're harmed by we don't take care of them as we should. And the narrative around veterans is manipulated to their detriment, to the veterans' detriment, and to ours. And it usually, you know, we get programs to benefit vets when it's going to be building a new anchor institution in a place where they need to up the investment development, you know. So that's something just to consider. But the fear and the flattery go together in the narrative control. And you'll see, like in a comprehensive plan, the fear-mongering is that, oh no, we're not going to be globally competitive if we don't do what? Build the roads to the MAPE that can accommodate all the traffic that we're going to see. What was that? I went to Veneta to talk with them. You know, they were going to build that huge amusement park. And so in their city council meetings and county planning, they were saying, we have to have all the roads, we have to have the infrastructure, we've got to have this because everyone's going to flood to this park. Well, guess what? Where's the park? And so all they need to get to implement smart growth policies is the idea that you're going to miss out if you don't do it. And they are counting on you believing that they know the future and can tell you how to bring about the future that's best for you. And then there's also the flattery component. We can do this. You know, when you see your city officials going on trips to visit other cities, like in Tulsa, they're always doing that. Oh, let's go schmooze with the people in Columbus, Ohio, or Kansas City. And you get like small town Tulsans against these, you know, they're in the same room drinking and enjoying like conversation about whatever they talk about. And they feel really cool because they're from Tulsa and they're getting involved in the Dallas or Kansas City clique. And so they start to like it. That is flattering to them. And then they say, oh yeah, well, the Dallas is doing it. We should too if we want to be like them. And we can do this. And I'm bringing these new ideas to these stupid Tulsans who otherwise would just be like down in the dumps. But I know this information. So there's the flattery, the fear, the common vision, the repetition. So if you can recognize those things, don't let the media stories scare you. Don't be fooled by, we have to have this kind of economic development here or else our town's going to go away. No, your town's going to go away if you do the economic development. Because what's going to distinguish, Sapulpa from Pawhuska? It's all the same kind of development. So if people, I think, would just focus on being good at what they're good at and doing, what they can do in the here and now versus trying to future-proof themselves or their communities. They use that term, future-proof. Then you would be much better off in the long run. Well, with COVID and all that happened there, it shows you the power that employers will have over employees. And, I tried to, yes, I tried to argue, they want to do away with representative government, which, representative government is messy, it's inefficient, we get into, tussles with each other, but it's slow, it is lawful, it is what people believe in. They believe that they have it. So, and we can, if we muster up some might, we can make some difference under that form of government. But as COVID was able to show, it was the employers that had almost total control over their employees because they said, you're going to lose your job. If you don't get this, you're going to lose your job. I mean, precisely because they want to get rid of the Constitution, which what they really want to do is eviscerate it of all of its power by chipping away at the legitimacy that it has in the minds of the public. So this is probably pretty simple, but I think whatever they want to tear down, I want to build that up. And, they use narrative control so much to drive people to line up for vaccines or they close down school in Tulsa all the time because it's going to rain or whatever, people might have an accident on the way to work. So it's all this liability risk management and things. I think whatever they want to tear down, that's where we need to build it up because it's a threat to them. So if we could shift the narrative ourselves away from liability risk management and toward riskiness, then that might give some teeth to the Constitution that it doesn't seem to have right now. If that doesn't work, then yeah, you probably need a different mechanism altogether. Yeah, I think really it's gonna, in my sort of 2-year hiatus from giving these talks, I've thought more and more about just how inundated we are with materialism. Not just like I want stuff, but we think of this world as our reality. And even those of us who are Christians and who know what Scripture says about our home is in heaven, we still are constantly attending to the troubles and sometimes the joys of this world. And I think it would be very good, if not for our country and our cities, it would be good for our souls if we could open up our eyes more to the heavenly world and just put these things in perspective and say, this stuff here doesn't matter. what did the great saints and martyrs fear in this world? Nothing. And just by that renewed attitude and belief in the power of God to do anything. And even if he doesn't decide to do anything, it's all right. Like that in and of itself, I think would be an example and witness that would make these kinds of appeals, the flattery and the fear, it would take away all their power. But how you do that, large scale, you rely on Christ to do it for people, So. Thank you all so much for going through this, and I will be in touch with Phyllis and to get you the information. I don't have it all ready. I'd like to be able to give it to you tonight, but probably in the next week you can watch a video and I'll put the supporting documents. And you can share anything. So the slides, you can download them, share them. The guide for comprehensive growth, it's 10 pages. Share it freely. You don't have to cite it or anything like that. Just get the info to the people.